All right. Assalamualaikum and good afternoon. Welcome to the networking session 2 hosted by Prekabanda. I am Azrin and I will be hosting this session. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Before we start, I would like to introduce our society. The Malaysian Urban Design Association, or otherwise known as Prekabanda, is an NGO that champions good urban design practice in Malaysia. Urban design is a field of expertise which bridges the gap between architecture and town planning, and it's not actually owned by any profession. Good urban design contributes to a better city form, better urban spaces, and contributes towards strong sense of place. Prekabanda was registered as a society in the early months of the pandemic. So a lot of our activities and concerns have mostly been shaped by it. The responses to the pandemic often have spatial implications where our movements are restricted and a clear need for safe distance from each other. And also, right now we are also talking a lot about ventilation. The pandemic is a wake-up call where it exposes the inherent problems of our cities, and we need coordinated and concerted efforts to ensure that our cities can withstand the challenges of the pandemic. So, we suggest that a national urban design compendium should be produced and implemented to ensure a coherent built environment where urban design is not treated as a makeup tool of beautification. Something that local authorities should actually, should actually take into consideration at the drawing board from the planning stage. And to discuss the needs and challenges of producing a national urban design compendium, we have the president of Prekabanda, Dr. Shuhana Shamsuddin, who is a retired professor of urban design from UTM, architect Lillian Tay, the vice president of VERITAS Design Group, and joining us soon, I hope, is Dato Dr. Dolbani Mijan, who had a long career in civil service, and his last post was as the Director General of Plan Malaysia. Okay, I can see Dato Dolbani is in now. Just in time, Dato. Yeah, we can hear you, Dato. Tapi tak nampak muka lagi.
Right. You can see me?
We cannot see you, but we can hear you. Okay. All right. So the discussion will be led by Dr. Shuhana Shamsuddin. And should you have any questions or comments, please share them using the Q&A function right next to the chat function. We will spend a few minutes towards the end to address some questions. So now I will pass the mic basically to Dr. Shuhana. Dr. Shuhana, floor is yours.
Thank you, Azrin, for the introduction and on the housekeeping rules of this urban discourse. Before we start this, I just would like to highlight why we decided to organize an urban discourse. In urban discourse, what we meant is that we'll be doing hopefully an interactive conversation based on the topic that we have identified, which is designing post-pandemic cities towards the National Urban Design Compendium for Malaysian cities. The lineup of the panelists actually comes from three different backgrounds, which is very important and also very relevant in discussing this issue. I would be looking more from the perspective of an academician and past researcher, where over the past 30 years I have been involved in research on urban design and covering all major cities in Malaysia. So my opinion will be based on the findings and output of the research that I have done throughout my 30 years career in UTM. Mm-hmm. And we also have architect Lillian Tay, who is actually will be representing the voice and point of view of a practitioner, an architect herself. She is actually the end user of the planning system, and she will be sharing us her experience and perhaps the problems and issues that they face, as the one who is actually translating all the policies that has been set at the planning level into actual built form. And it's not really an easy process, Mayu. And sometimes the output of the cities are the one that is actually will reflect the effectiveness of the policies that has been set. And last but not least, we have Datuk TPR Dr. Dolbani Mijan here, who has a long and illustrious career in the civil service, being a planner as well as an urban design by qualification at his postgraduate levels. He will be sharing with us his experience and the problems that normally face, in trying to execute or trying to implement planning, urban planning. And his last post as the Director General of Plan Malaysia, formerly known as the Federal Town and Country Planning Department, actually gives him the best position to really discuss about this issue that we are going to highlight this morning. So before we start this conversation, I would just like to put the whole discussion in perspectives and why this discussion about the importance of urban design to be integrated into the planning system is very relevant, because if we look at the current moment, the whole countries in the world are actually trying to support the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, of which SDG 11, which is about sustainable cities and communities, actually becomes relevant when we are discussing about the importance of urban design, because in SDG 11 we are looking into how cities can be inclusive, safe and resilient, which is actually part of the scope of concern in urban design. And on top of that, the new urban agenda of the UN Habitat also highlight 8 key components, of which to promote safe, accessible and green public spaces, of which sustainable urban design plays a key role in ensuring the livability and prosperity of the cities. And of the key components of urban design, there is this concern about urban planning and design, which is important in strengthening the urban and territorial planning to best utilize the spatial dimension of urban form and deliver urban strategies. So if you look at the current scenarios that have happening at the world level, in a way, everybody now is not just talking about planning down, we also have to be looking into the design, because as explained by our host just now, Azwin, in urban design, we are just not looking into policies for good design, but how the policies is actually translated into the built form that becomes the product of the city that affects the quality of life of the people. Now, going to the issue that we're going to discuss this morning, before I go to the panels, I would just like to highlight that the current pandemic that we are experiencing today has shown that it is not enough just to focus on the planning cities to make it sustainable. We also have to be concerned about the health and the well-being of the people, because the pandemic is actually giving us another problem which relates to these issues, which is actually aptly stipulated in SDG 3, which is good health and well-being. So cities now are not just have to be efficient in also delivering the services. It also have to promote good health and well-being, and this can actually be achieved through good urban design. So when we talk about post-pandemic, so we assume that by next year, we probably cannot get rid of this COVID-19, but we'll be going to the stage where we'll be living with the virus, and perhaps we have to start thinking, how best do we design our cities in the future with this pandemic in mind. And it's also the right time where we can start to find what are the implementation tools that we can use in order to instill a good design solution that will be translating all the planning policies that will come out post pandemic. So what is our current problem with regards to urban design in Malaysia is actually we are losing the art of building cities, where when we talk about urban design, there are two aspects. There is the urban design, the process, and then urban design, the product or the outcome. And normally we will see the product, which is the built form that result from the process, will be actually telling us whether we have or actually done the professionals involved in the build environment has done a good job is through the product that affects the life of the people. And this outcome of the planning activities and the architecture will actually be reflected in the city form and the townscape produced. So in my opinion, the current scenario is that from the research that I've done all these years, now one thing that is very pertinent, very dominant is that our cities tends to lack character. And many of the cities that used to have very good townscape qualities have slowly been eroded through new development that is not following certain kind of guidelines or certain sort of vision. So there is a very loose kind of control and loose coordination of design in the city, and that it is led to the architects of the various parcels of land sites in the city to interpret the design solution for the particular site. So in a way, our cities lack that visual delights and also giving comfort to the people. Another issue that I observed from my past research is that we are not very people friendly in the way we build our cities. So issues about the needs of the pedestrians, needs of those people with disabilities, the cyclists are not really being met in the design of our cities. There is this issue of poor connectivity, in the sense that when we talk about making cities walkable, it is also going to relate to the connectivity, and the issue of safety is still have not been resolved, apart from the problem of the legibility, where most cities tend to look alike. And when we have this issue, the when cities lack the visual appropriateness in the way the cities are built, so the issue of identity and sense of place becomes very important. We also face problems in the sense that our cities lack in urban spaces that can be effectively used by the public. And normally this is due to the lack of attention given to the structuring of the city, and the how the hierarchy of urban spaces has been planned and also designed to suit the need. And finally, which is actually uh, where we can see the effect now with this pandemic, is the problem of besides access to the open spaces that actually affecting many people now, there is this problem of comfort, and and the way we are designing is not responding to the climate, and therefore we can see the issues. Many places cannot be used because it's very poorly ventilated, and we tend to focus all our activities indoor, and the abundance of shopping malls that cannot be used utilized now is actually going to be one very glaring problem that has to be resolved in the future. So with the challenges posed by this pandemic and the need for the social distancing, as well as the access to nature and open spaces for good mental health and well-being, I would like now to pose the questions to our two panelists. Firstly, to who would go first, Lillian or Dato? Lillian,
Lillian
okay,
first,
Lillian,
please.
ladies first. So, Lillian, okay. What do you think is the pertinent problems that we need to address now post-pandemic, and in view of the current problems with regards to the design of our cities?
Well, I think we live in an unprecedented time in the evolution of our country and in our cities. Never before, as we all know, we had to experience such a drastic, disruption to our daily lives as city dwellers. And it is definitely the time to rethink the entire systemic issues, as well as very practical, down-to-earth issues that not just experts, will tell you, but even every person who has experienced a pandemic. I think what you mentioned earlier, increasingly, besides the issues of climate change, climate action, that cities also need to commit and be urgent and take urgent action on. I think the pandemic has also raised another public health issue and wellness issue. And very clearly, I also do agree that no longer do we just, there's a lot of things I think planning can do to facilitate better implementation of the solutions we need for the new normal. I think I speak really as an architect working for 30 years, in my home of Malaysia, in KL, my hometown, and I mean, we all have many solutions to deal with at the unit level. For instance, I believe, for instance, from the micro to the macro, at the unit level, I believe we all must have homes that can be naturally ventilated. No longer can we rely on closed up small units, where you will be in a very poorly ventilated space. That is almost a given that we move forward in the future. In the 60s, all public housing had a balcony, a usable balcony. That's large enough for you to put a chair, a few plants, and hang your laundry. But sometime, I remember this very well, sometime in the early 90s, it was deemed that laundry looks bad, and all the public housing were required to put the balconies in the back, where they don't get sun anyway to dry the laundry. And also the family is now deprived of a well-ventilated living room because they only just have small windows. So, small things like that, which we have done naturally well before, need to be revisited and to get this natural, simple wisdom. So, I mean, because housing affordability is going to be an issue continuously, we can't just rely on making units bigger. We also need to address how common facilities are. Common facilities today tend to be a lot of rooms, close up, or a lot of rooms for different things. We need more open space in the common facilities that are within the condominium or the housing community. And we also, most importantly, need to create more green areas in our cities. And that is a big challenge because there are hardly any more green areas left. And we're not talking, I feel Kuala Lumpur has, for instance, has a wonderful, large, iconic parks, Lake Gardens, and we have Metropolitan Park, for instance. But what we need are more, and those are good, but those are weekend parks. Those are parks that you need to take your car and drive out to there. And what we need are small pocket parks in the city. And how are we going to do that? Because there's very little land left for that. And I think planning has a role to play to see what sort of process we can bring in to release, to be able to unlock the use of these small lands. We've had our office for 20 years in Jalan Ampang, and I've seen a few undeveloped lots, for instance. There have been car parks for the last 20 years. I mean, how can the local authorities, planning authorities, the state authorities enable, for instance, a long-term lease from owners who don't want to develop their land for a while, how to facilitate and make it easy, instead of them renting for car park, to rent them or give them a tax break, a waiver or a discount on tax, on assessment tax, and the city will take out a lease to create small parks in the city, for instance. I mean, I feel that these are some things that need to be looked at the larger macro planning level, at the state planning level, that is beyond what architects can do within the building. I mean, this is an example, I feel. For instance, renders of land not yet developed, how to get access to them such that you can already take it back to make better sidewalks, more green areas, or even just to widen our pedestrian sidewalks. Because now, for instance, there's a road surrender, but until everybody develops, you can't upgrade the sidewalk. So how can our planning process be more nimble, be more flexible, and how do we empower our planning authorities to be able to make decisions that may not by the book look that they can do, but it's a solution for an interim solution that can be endorsed, accepted, agreed by all parties, and for the good of the community, because the issue of making green parks on land is not going to happen. For instance.
Lillian, it's interesting what you've highlighted now. I think the new normal is not just about the social distancing. The way we make decisions also requires a new normal kind of decision making.
Yes.
Like what you, because probably we have to review some of the legislations, the bylaws requirements, because one of the issue which you mentioned just now is about housing now needs to be well ventilated. The current issue is that if you look at the low cost housing, the low cost flats, these are the flats that is actually now you can see many of the victims of COVID and are living in this kind of very cramped, congested, in the low cost flats. So there will be the issue of retrofitting later on. Say for example, this pandemic will last for about years. So how do we deal with this? The current stock in a housing stock which is not really appropriate to deal with this pandemic.
Yeah, spot on. I think we should not just focus on new development, but how to rehabilitate and improve existing development, all the PPRs that need to be rehabilitated, for instance. I mean, one of the things as an architect, we go by numbers, and I feel really upset when I realize that because of the car parking requirement, and because of the lack of access to public transportation, poor walkability, these issues. Therefore, people, even though they are buying a small unit of 650 to 800 square feet, they are allocated 2 car parks. 2 car parks it actually amounts to 1,000 square foot, because it's roughly 500 square foot to build a car park, including the ramps and the lift lobbies, all that. So can you imagine you are actually buying more area in car park to park your 2 cars than to live in? So I think we really need to, in a big hurry, address the connectivity, the first mile, last mile issue, so that we get public less dependent on transport and release up the space and address the real affordability issue. Can you imagine if you buy your unit, half the area that you're buying is a car park. Your unit is 850, less than the car park. So, if we took away that cost, for instance, we will also be able to reduce the selling price of the house. And then they will not be also needing to spend 40% of their disposable income on a car loan for their first car, the young people go through. So I think there's a lot of common sense thing that needs the integration of the highest level of planning at the state level to address some of these. That's my view.
Okay, let's go to Dato now. I think what we have highlighted, is actually real issues on the ground that actually are brought forth because of the peculiar nature of the pandemic. So as the former Director General of Plan Malaysia and the one who has been involved in the planning, what do you think will be the constraints or of the challenges that we have to deal with this issue that has been raised by Lillian? Which requires, like I said just now, a new normal kind of a decision making that probably we cannot now decide the way we do in the past, because now there are new things that we have to consider. So Dato, what's your initial point of view?
Okay. Thank you, Professor Dr. Shuhana. I think talking about post-pandemic, I think something very unprecedented happened these 2 years. I think many things has been changed. The way we think, the way we move, the way we play, everything I think has been changed because of the pandemic. And I think when we are talking about designing for the post-pandemic, just now we mentioned about ventilated area. I think that was very important. When we talk urban design, they are very much on the lower scale in the planning system. We have such a plan, we have local plan, we have last time. I think we very much tackling these urban design issues in very local level, very specific area plan and so on. I remember we implementing something in Taiping. I think we have special urban design plan for Taiping as well, which is cover a very small area, and from there we try to make it more and more. And I think with pandemic, I think naturally when the viral is so quick, during pandemic they're so natural, like the river getting much better, the water quality is getting
Something good come out
greener,
of it.
something good, come out of that. I remember last year, everything was viral in Sungai Kelang here and there. Even in KL city center also, we can see the trees start coming up, very healthy and so on, because in a way less activities happen, something like that. So I think use of the natural kind of things, very intensively. We must use the sunlight, we must use the whatever. I think we don't have the 4 season kind of thing. We have only 2 season here, cold and hot. Probably we have to make use whatever thing as our design role of thumb in future, which I think the key thing, the essence is actually must be in the ventilation, good ventilation. Yeah, that's very important. That's why when we during the pandemic, even when we are encouraged to be in outdoor, and to have ourselves under the sun and so on. I think that one is quite at least 20 minutes a day or something like that. I think there must be our design tools or design toolkits whenever you want to design something in city center. Look at this.
Dato, can I interject a bit on that? What do you think? Has urban design been fully considered or not in the way we plan our cities? Or
sorry, I can't hear because I lost your point just now. Yeah.
Okay. Just now, because I'm trying to probe on something that you mentioned just now. Urban design is at the lower scale. So in a way, it is the process which translate the policies, the planning policies into a design framework that can be taken on by the architects. When they are given a certain site to design a building. So my question here is this, and something that we probably just guessing, or has urban design been adequately considered in the whole the planning system, or do you think it has been effectively done, or do you think that we still need to include more urban design consideration in the either the preparation of the local plans and also in the development control system?
We should have the legal aspect. Akta 172 ataupun Akta 172 or 172 Act, I think he didn't mention about urban design at all. They unlike SIA and so on, they get from there social impact, environmental impact, and so on. They are spelled out very properly in our Act 172. But this one is not actually hampered for us to make it more urban design is more effective. So we can always create as regulation. Small regulation. They call it rules, rule and regulation, ataupun in Malay they call it guidelines. So that was very important. And we at that time, during my time, we don't have that very one fit all urban design guideline, because UDG is very specific for that particular area. So that's why when we came to know, like Iskandar, like Putrajaya, they having UDG. In state level, in our planning system, we don't have that, So, but we try very hard. But I mean, we look at that thing is very what do you call it? One? It's not really something very. I think it's very important, but the structure is not like that. So but we encourage UDG, like normally these UDG created by local authority, like but before that they have discussed with a professional and so on how UDG has to be done and properly properly done for implementation. I think that's why I think it's very important you have UDG and so on. In fact, during my time we encourage in a way you have to have UDG, but we cannot have very common for all, yeah, because UDG is very
Yeah.
specific, yeah. But in a way, we try very hard, but at that time, very it's not, it's like putting here and there, yeah. We try very hard for typing as well, but we need something like the process during the implementation. I think we have to bring this matter up to the state planning committee, something like that. Yeah, we have to have you have to discuss in that particular level. Therefore, that particular urban design guideline has to be seen by everyone. Like yeah.
But the problem with urban design guidelines, it is a non-statutory document, so there is no legal
True.
backing that if, for example, people do not follow the guideline, you cannot do anything, you cannot take them to court. And so the other issue about guidelines is that it's on the implementation of the guidelines. So very often we have this problem whereby there's plenty of guidelines on the shelves, but when it comes to on the ground, who is to ensure that these guidelines are being implemented? Okay, I'll stop with you. I just want to follow up with Lillian on this matter. Lillian, as a practicing architect, do you think that having an urban design guideline would help a lot in your role as an architect to actually design buildings that will be fitted to the context of the site?
See, I think like in the case of Putrajaya, which is a new city, and they came up with the urban design guideline from day one, then it is holistic because it is tied to the creation of the streets. Sorry, I better switch to low. It's tied to the creation of the public areas in the city. So it's all integrated into one master plan. I think the problem with urban design guidelines is it is now, I mean, most of the time it's coming too late in the process of development because the landowners have already gone to divide up their land. And I think this is one of the largest things. The land parcellation is already done long ago. And then because the land subdivision alienation process, and if you want to change the parcel's shape and size, it takes so long that nobody wants to do it, and they end up having island planning. We can only go within like an island, so everything is an island. Every development becomes an island in itself, and the parcels are not big, so the islands are not big enough to support usable green spaces, for instance. And that these islands also have no obligation to correlate with each other, except through the urban design guideline, the later urban design guideline enforced by local authorities. I think that's what I think Shuhana mean by saying that it's not really statutory, but it is enforceable. I think local authorities do enforce that. But like we often find, for instance, there's too much small unusable pockets. For instance, within a half an acre development site, or even 1 acre, and you put in the 10% green area, what can you do? It's just some cosmetic green. It's not really usable. It's better to actually concentrate it in pockets that are usable for everyone. Now we have too much decorative green just to comply, like 2 meter perimeter green planting that's in the shadow of buildings that cannot really support a substantive planting to mitigate, carbon. So we are doing a lot of window dressing for greening, and we need to make sure, and this is because of the island planning that started. You can't really blame the local authorities because the land division process had happened preceding, it coming to development of the parcels. So I think this, perhaps, when someone wants to divide large blocks of land, they must have a master plan that will to create green, community green areas that are then unnegotiable, that will remain, to be developed as green, and not later on when the need arises, convert the playground to, commercial space. So I think we need to look at the land division process and to make that process easy, such that if now, to mitigate all the island plots that we have, if now people want to go back and do, to change the shape of the land or something, for instance, to enable a better planning for spaces that will add to the urban realm, the street front and all, that they should be able to do it without fearing that it's going to set them back by another 3 to 5 years. So that's, I think, one of the challenges we face.
Okay. This reminds me of one of the research that I've done in the past when I went to UK and to see how they actually implement their urban design guidelines and so forth. I noticed that over there they do not rely too much on the statutory documents like local plans and so forth, where as far as design is concerned. They are relying a lot on these tools, these design tools, where in the form of urban design briefs, site briefs, urban design guidelines, and so forth. And another thing that I discovered during my research is that there are a lot of efforts on the part of the local authority planners in discussing with the architects on how to actually design and develop the set towards a certain common target that the locality wanted. They normally have what we call an urban design framework, that sets up the vision and the mission and how they would like to see the overall design of the city with regards to, like, not just over here we are more concerned about plot ratio, density, and so very very quantitative and mechanical kind of guidelines. But there they are more looking into the qualitative, more looking into the character, identity, the soundscape, and so forth. So this kind of the efforts that has been done on the ground is as a result of the partnership between the planners, the local authorities, and the architects, in trying to decide what is best for the place. So going back to Dato, when we see what is your response towards the, how far have you think that urban design has been considered in the drafting of the structure plans and local plans that actually can set a clear vision about the character or the identity of the city through these plans? Is it happening, or do you think it's much to be desired?
Okay, Prof. I think when you think about urban design in such a plan and local plan, looks very superficial here. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's very little superficial because even in UK as well, urban design is very much later. Planning is very much earlier, and urban design only come out into picture in 1970s. It can be evolution. Meaning when you plan something, even the architect at that time cannot comprehend the quality yet at that time before 1970s. When they when in UK, when they have problem of not getting the quality public office space, they start wondering what is going to be done. So that's why they come on the design in 1970s. That's why try to look at the space between the buildings, between two building and so on, the riverside and so on. So because this is the only element that public can go, yeah. Because the rest all building is you cannot enter. But when you talk about public space, they actually is belong to is shared space belongs to the local people and so on. That's why we think that they come to evolution that can we discovered that the first one is not right. They start to develop better one in future, something like that. So urban design go through the evolution, yeah, from planning, bad planning, and so on. And when people realize that there must be some link between architect and planning, so these two must be interfaced or shared and came out with the very quality public open space. So even in Malaysia as well, before that, I think we don't realize that, but we start local authorities start putting superficially the I won't say policy, the statement mentioning open space, urban design element, blah blah blah, and so on. Yeah, but you cannot understand what is the problem, what is the challenging, and so on, and you will become matured and matured. You cannot do things first thing right at the first place. Probably UDG in Putrajaya, I think it's good because you have before that. But I won't say that one is perfect. You must go through process as well, yeah. So evolution and so on. That's why design it come with the the situation, the things needed for that particular time and so on. So that's why I think putting the element of a design in that particular meta is quite challenging because you must be able to foresee thing in future, who's going to use, who's going to produce thing and so on. Yeah. So, and they are very much, I won't say the urban design is fragile, but they are subject for trending kind of things, what they are supposed to have. Like this pandemic, and this pandemic is new thing. We have to adjust, you have to adapt with things and so on. That's my response for time.
I support Dr. Dolbani saying that more integration
Because you are more on the, practicing architect or something like that, Yeah, but
I would like to say that engineers have preceded us. That's the problem. Often the planning of road infrastructure and even rail infrastructure, but maybe less rail because it's now only happening. The planning of road infrastructure had happened before urban planning and planning, and that's the problem. That existing communities are already starting to be cut off even before they have developed further. So I think engineers also need to.
That brings me to one of the things that I discovered in my one of my research about the quality of the townscape, especially our historic townscapes, are very much affected by this road engineering regulation, whereby the road widening policies are actually destroying the original building line of this of the historic town old shop houses. So in the end, you can see various gaps in between buildings that destroy the sense of unity of the whole townscape. And that's why I think that urban design consideration must go hand in hand with even the road and traffic engineering policies, because when we talk about because urban design is looking into the qualitative aspects of city building, because like if you, for example, another thing I would like to hear both of your response is that I noticed that many of our policies are very quantitative in the aspects that you're concerned about measurements, like 10% for open spaces and, how many port ratio and so forth. But after that, there's no coordination in terms of, how all these standards, these quantitative standards has been implemented. You can have 10% open spaces, but in a very site that is very isolated and not strategic enough located. So what's your point of view about this overemphasis on the quantitative standards rather than on the qualitative aspects of city building?
It's very qualitative. I think it's true because you have to come out with proportionate. When you talking about proportionate and land use, they must be quantitative. Yeah. To me, the why is very simple as that. 10% open space, 35% infrastructure, and so on. The why is our rule of thumb in planning. But urban design is actually filling the gap. I mean, your 35% is only the figure that planning should have. But urban design is go beyond that. The beauty, the aesthetic value.
Is that happening or not in reality?
In reality, they come after that. They come after that, because when they come after the urban design come after that. Like in UK, I come after that. Like in Paris, the very huge Haussmann, Champs-Élysées, they have very engineering kind of approach, very road having the road, wide road and so on. But when you talk about the design by parcel, that's why come into precinct by precinct, and from the small growing bigger and bigger, and they are very much localized. Like say even in KL, you have this kind of Bangkok Bank precinct. You have somewhere else. You have Choket area and so on. They are all different kind of environment. All together is different environment. Yeah. So even if you want to have a place making over there, you have to see the environment surrounded. You cannot have Bangkok Bank area in Choket. It's totally two different things. Yeah, this one when you talk urban design is very much on the I won't say imaginative kind of thing, but perspective. Yeah. So based on the local identity, local strength, local asset, and so on, you push.
But whose responsibility do you think would that be? Would be the planners or the architects? in actually achieving this
Planning kind of thing is urban designers.
but
Yeah.
we don't our problem. You do we have that profession? We don't have the urban designers,
Yeah, urban
and who
design
is
is
actually
yeah.
responsible to do that?
Well,
and,
actually,
and,
they're all there.
Yeah.
It's just the disconnect. I think that we need to the disconnect. I think
yeah,
our
that is the
urban
issue.
planners and our
That the
architects,
That's the issue. This
interface.
disconnect is yeah.
That's what
Okay.
I'm getting at.
you know, I think everyone has that vision, you know, and it's just that they don't feel empowered, you know, in the whole process of implementation. Yeah, we are just submitting plans and hoping that people will understand. And often, when you're doing something to mitigate or to innovate, it may need something that is not totally compliant to the basic guideline. And I think our local authorities must have the conviction and the empowered to say, okay, yeah, this one merits a waiver to do this, because it will then create that which wouldn't happen if everybody did the same uniform compliance to the same uniform guideline. So
I noticed in UK, I think even in UK, they use the development control system to do this coordination in design.
Yeah.
For example, there is such thing as there's a permission to grant permission on the outline planning permission for development, and then they will have the process where they control the design. And this is an even greater checking and coordination of the design that takes place, where this process of discussion between the submitting architects and the planners takes place in order to arrive to a common
understanding,
understanding
and common acceptance of
do
the.
you think this is happening in Malaysia or not? This design control process, or is just more like checking in terms of the, like I said, the quantitative, the standards, just compliance of the standards, and it's left to the architects to interpret.
I think we have between publics, private, or whoever, they need more discourse, more real, more conversation, because is not the same as what local authority has. So you must have more discussion, and come up with at least, I was 100% accepted, but at least majority accept that one is the quality of kind of thing we want to produce.
So actually, this goes back to my final point. I mean, which is actually what the whole purpose. We are trying to propagate for a national urban design compendium to be prepared for the whole country, which actually outline the principles of design, because we want Malaysian cities to be Malaysian in terms of character, and there are certain things about our cultural background, our climate, and so forth that warrants our own approach in the design of cities. And at the moment, we do not have that kind of guideline which looks into the whole of Malaysian, because we got so many typology of cities in Malaysia, and each of them should have retain its own character. In UK, they have this urban design compendium which does the job of outlining all the principles in design that actually then being translated by the local authorities in the form of urban design guidelines. So what do you think? Should we pursue for this to be done, and what will be the challenges of putting such an urban design compendium? Because mind you, urban design compendium is not like an urban design guideline. It's more like a framework, a design framework that ensures certain quality of the city design will be pursued by various authorities, and they will interpret it locally through their urban design guidelines, but they will all be supporting the vision and mission set in this compendium. Dato, what do you think about that? Do you think it's possible for us to
I think it's possible. Nothing impossible, but probably we must go a lot of discussion, a lot of selling point, and so on. So until the local authorities, planners, or authorities, architect, or whatever, they support it, and they know what we want. That's very important. If we discussion, I'm very optimistic by having that.
What will be the challenges then?
Yeah,
what will be the
challenges? Whether but perception of the manager or people who are working over there could be what they depend on how they accept the things. To me, something good you have to be very, what do you call one? You should you should open yourself to a new thing and so on. You have to discuss properly. Then we should start something to what do you call one? Yeah, to make people believe that we are creating something very good quality for the city. So to me, nothing impossible, but something need to be done, even how difficult they are. But you have to be discussing, not cinta cinta, you know. So cinta cinta is can go anywhere, but you have to penetrate this particular authorities. When macam Mua, I look Mua, now is Batu Pahat, they start doing something like small little thing. They realize that what they are doing now is in the right direction, putting elements of urban design intact in the city center. So compendium, I think the one is quite good because you are actually try to go very focused and try to give in some quality to your own towns. Yeah. That's, I think, my belief in that. I think nothing is possible, but you have to go through the process. Yeah. Okay.
How about you, Lillian?
Well, I
Do you
think
think having an urban design compendium would help?
to me, actually, we already have a very comprehensive system. It's just that the timing is too slow. See, like we have the National Physical Plan, the Structure Plan. It comes every 20 years. It needs to be more nimble. More nimble. For instance, now it's a real test. It needs to be. For instance, Kuala Lumpur just issue out the draft structure plan, or just and about to gazette. Or have just gazetted, yes, the draft structure plan. But unfortunately, with this whole post-pandemic, I think we must, make an addendum or something to go back and revisit some which may not have foreseen the type of disruption created by the pandemic. So I think the whole planning process needs to be more nimble, and that there it to be more effective stakeholder engagement. Besides what Dr. Dolbani mentioned earlier, to get even architects and urban designers and planners working with engineers when they lay down infrastructure, so that they don't put the immovable obstacles already that we have to mitigate and work around later. I think to also engage civil society interest groups that are usually very focused on certain areas, because if you just put for public comment, you just put it up, nobody may have noticed it in during the required time. Because all of this is in our regulations. We have extremely good regulations, but maybe we need to make it more effective to get the type of stakeholder input that will help in the process. And I think this Dr. Shuhana, what you propose is very good. It's a bit like the Sustainable Development Goals. It should be put up as these are our urban design goals, and that people should look at it as
actually the difference between the difference between a compendium and the structure plan.
Yeah, I think also we just all need to be able to involve in the whole process, not just like architects coming in, dealing with the island planning that we have to deal with, and just like looking at it as we have to recognize each building we do is not an object, but it sits in the neighborhood, and we've got to put our minds out to the whole and planning of the entire neighborhood. First the street and the neighborhood, and then only we will get a more cohesive public realm, and a more cohesive city. So character, it's hard because every city has its own character, every region has its own history. So I think the more neighborhood, and there need to be differences too, also between how, for instance, Kuala Kangsar may want to deal with this more historical fabric. A new growing city,
royal town,
industrial may have different, one different type of urban design, criteria. So the local character of neighborhoods and precincts need to be addressed as well, and given space to be, instead of being thrown into a uniform requirements. So local authorities play a big role, I think, to customize, whatever standard national planning guidelines. And they must be empowered to do that and feel, and empowered to do that, and not just toe the line and follow something that may not.
That is empowerment is very important, because that will also promote a sense of belonging, to having upon a kind of policies that actually help strengthen the character and the sense of place of their city. Actually, the reason why we propagate for this compendium, because the compendium is actually a non-statutory document, so it will not be stuck like the problem that we see in producing statutory document like structure plans and local plans, because there were a lot of stages that is required by the act, the law, and sometimes, by the time the plans are being gazetted, a lot of things has changed on the ground. So that's why we need to actually fall back also to non-statutory documents like this compendium, because that can easily be changed and respond to the changes that we see on the ground, so that policies are not very static, and it becomes like a framework that allow the creativity of the architects, to translate, but within a certain design framework that will is required in order to coordinate the design. Because I see what is a problem in Malaysia. There's no design coordination at the level on the ground. So you can see there's too much freedom being given to the architects and the landowners, to design within. But you probably don't agree with me. But if you look at the design and the size that I don't think the local authorities control the design that much. And probably if there is the problem, it's more with regards to the land matters and like you mentioned just now, the regulation. But do you think Malaysia, if you look at in US, I in one of my research on the waterfront regionation, I talked to several planners with the at the San Francisco City Council, Baltimore City Council, and so forth. One of the things that they do is that they have a design review panel, which actually sit and assess the design for very important sites that have public interest. I think this is a very good thing to be introduced, because especially certain sites in the cities, which actually can reflect the character of the places. So this design review panel will consist of very prominent people in urban design, and also practitioners as well as academicians, and they will be scrutinizing the design and also help to ensure that the design of for the particular site will give certain character to the place. Do you think this is practical for us to introduce in the in Malaysian context? Because as I say, some sites warrants very scrutiny of the design, so that because once the building's been built, you cannot really tear it down if it doesn't fit into the context. So what are your response to this, any of you? Having a
It's very good. I think we should have that. What you mentioned, a sort of.
So that is being done in US, because they don't have guidelines, or what they normally have is just briefs, site briefs. But they have these design review panels, which is the one that actually helps to control and coordinate the design, or the important. But I think that they only focus on major sites, that has impact to the city. But in UK, they reutilize a lot on these urban design guidelines or site briefs, and they have a compendium, urban design compendium, which actually becomes the gives the overall framework towards the way we coordinate the design. Actually, because the
local
difference
authority in Malaysia, probably have more than 100 local authority in Malaysia. I think the way we work here, I think based on my observation, I think the local authority working very hard if they are actually in the competition. If they compete with if they are compete, like you have the Murninet, when end of the year they declared is the most sustainable city, they become very excited to do things, so they like to improve their town based on the criteria we have set and so on. So perhaps I think for compendium to provide very comprehensive and holistic manner, I think it's good, but we must have our partnership as well. We have the partner in local authority. We try to get more friendlier local authorities, planner, whoever, and so on. We start to push the thing to be done, something like this, something. Then compendium is working very well in doing that. So in that particular environment, I think is work very competition here and there, and eventually the locality they start elevate their kind of things, getting and better. I can see this urban design compendium can be done in such way. We make friend with the planner, whoever in there, who are actually more friendlier, it's easier, or I won't say easier, and sitting better and so on. As far as urban design is concerned, then we can start implementing things one by one. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Lillian and Dato. We've already reached 1 o'clock. I don't know, do we have time to entertain one or two questions?
Time now. Oh my God.
We go back to the host, Azrin.
Yes, perhaps we can address one or two questions, and I see on the Q&A, I will just pick the questions which have received the most votes. I will share the question now, so maybe Dr. Shuhana can read it and just pass it on to the panelists.
Okay, so the question here is that, is it still relevant? Is from Anish Shazrin Azmi, Town Planning Department, Bandar Perda. Is it still relevant to create more public spaces, especially during this pandemic where people are staying at home now?
Definitely. Definitely relevant, because people can't stay at home. The homes as we know today.
Definitely relevant, I guess. Yeah.
And they really need that option to go out. It's a matter of managing how these public spaces are used, and people following a certain SOP to keep distance. Families should be able to walk together.
I think
that it's about getting the SOP to enable these public spaces to be used. I mean, it is going to be a fact that many people are not going to be able to afford, a spacious home that can do work from home, online classroom, all in one place. You have seen so many times people are doing the work from home from their kitchen table. The families cooking everywhere. The kids fighting for their online class to start. Things. So it's I think we need this recreational outlet that is accessible, small pocket parks close to where you can walk to. It's just about managing, and I think we would learn how to manage better. So Shazrin, I do believe it's needed.
Yeah, I can't say more. I tend to agree with that. It's still relevant, very much relevant, because I think we need open sun, we need clear, very clean air, and so on. Of course, the public space is very much important because they can provide all these things. So stay inside is different kind of things. I think, but when you think post pandemic, I think we must have more public space that can be used by various people, various kind of demand and so on. That's very important.
With this work from home culture, we need more public spaces nearer to home, because when you sit down in the house, working and so forth. Sometimes you need to get out for the sake of your mental health and well-being. You need more spaces nearer to home to be accessible and to be used for the recreational needs. So okay, I hope Anis, we have responded to the question. Do we have time, Azrin?
Yes, let's address this question, and then we can wrap up after that. Yeah.
Okay. So this question, I'm interested to hear the panelists' thoughts on unpacking the politics and power dynamics behind city making, to which has caused the island planning issue. Lillian, you are the one who actually brought this issue. Would you like to go first?
Well, I'm just an end user. I think I would like to hear Dr. Dolbani, who has been in the
yes, as an user.
Okay. But I do believe that I've mentioned the need to empower our local authorities as well, and not be, to make exceptions where exceptions are needed, where it merits, where, as I mentioned, often innovation and mitigation require solutions that are against the standard requirement. But I think Dr. Dolbani is the one who's been
or architect, whoever.
Of power.
Yeah, whoever. I think we need some sort of innovation. We have to be creative in the way we do things and so on. Yeah, that's why to me is island planning. The one should be that way, because there's island planning. I like this.
It's island planning.
Yeah, I like Lillian's what just now. Lillian's jargons. island planning, which is, yeah. Well,
Yeah, we just need to
How to
promote
unpack the
open.
politics and power dynamics?
Yeah.
unpack politics. Empowerment is very important.
I okay.
Empowerment is very important, yeah. But at the same time, they must in is more
Empowerment.
manageable way.
Yeah.
How do you manage things and so on? How you
Or
accept things
less
together?
politicking?
Less politics, yeah. There shouldn't be, because what we do things, or what we try to do in planning or urban is something good for the end user
Yeah.
and so on. So I won't demand so much, but respecting the professional, yeah, in doing thing in the city, that should be the what do you call it one, the essence of developing the city. Not because we think that professional is very good in doing things, but they know better because they are answerable, they are having more knowledge in that. I think they be able to lend their idea to the city planner or whoever, especially the politicians. So we should provide the accurate or correct knowledge to politicians. Yeah, that's very important.
Mm.
Mm. Mm.
Actually, actually, what this island planning to me is an anti-urban design, because when we talk about design, we are talking about a sense of unity in the way we design city towards achieving certain character. So when you have an island approach to sites, then we will have the syndrome of many beautiful buildings on their own, but they do not talk to each other in context, and this reflects the problem of coordination in design, which is actually going back to the issue that we've discussed, the importance of having the urban design guidelines and these urban design compendiums
Mm.
that
Mm.
will have set the rules, the principles that will unify the whole design. Because what takes place on certain sites, is should be left to the architect. But how do you coordinate so that the each island sites will have certain kind of principles that they respond to
Yeah.
in terms of design. But going back into this unpacking the politics and power dynamics, it reminds me of one of the discussion that I had with the planner at the Durham City Council in UK, because I was asking them, how did you manage to control the development, the new development within the city that makes them
Mm.
all responding to the context, that we don't see any very attempts to have iconic buildings that actually disrespectful or alienated to the context, and they don't have the syndrome of buildings, vulgar looking buildings, just trying to outshine the others. So what he said to me is that of course they also have this problem of politicians, trying to intervene in some of decision making, and also there are some vested interests involved,
Mm. Mm.
which actually beyond the control of the professionals. But what strikes me is that he said they normally make use of the public to actually lobby for or to put pressure on the politicians and the city fathers towards protecting the cities, because the public are so outspoken. They have a very effective public participation in the way in the planning of the cities, and they have pressure groups, NGOs and interest groups, which is actually breathing on the neck of the of the politicians and the plan. So perhaps Malaysia, we also our public also now should be more alert and voicing out our opinion and what we demand from the city. A good example recently is when the Convent Bukit Nanas, there were some attempts that it actually nothing happened yet, but people are scared that the building will be demolished. There was a lot of public outcry, and it goes into the media, lots of publicity. In the end, now the problem, Kampung Bukit Nanas is now safe. The issue of it, the threat that it might be demolished to pave the way for future commercial development is not really there. And this is, I see, there is a future for Malaysia in this respect, that now we see that the publics are now very concerned about their the identity and the heritage that makes up um, the genius loci of the place. So I think that's the last question, isn't it, Azrin?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Shuhana,
I
can
will
I
take.
bring you back to what you yourself mentioned? You know, the having
Okay.
an
Yeah.
independent commission or jury that's made up of a combination of professionals and
Yeah.
public interest groups and
Design review panel.
members
Yeah.
of the
Okay.
public. Yeah, I think that will help. I think our local authorities to make decisions where there are decisions that does not comply. So apparently not comply, but it is
Politics of it.
possible to see that it actually is effective in mitigating or creating something new that is beneficial to the public spaces. And I think that what you mentioned is something that could happen that will help. I think to empower, so to speak, our local authorities. Because
Yeah.
they may feel that this is not compliant and this is not within the powers, but but if they also hear from an independent commission that is selected, on depending type of project.
Yeah.
I think that helps to facilitate and get better, public representation in the whole planning decision making process. I think back to what you said, it's something that should happen. I think Penang MBPP has something like that. They do have architects on their planning approval, processing stage, giving input. It's perhaps something that could be formalized to help mitigate this decision making process.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we have to stop there. I don't think I have much time to wrap up. But actually, it's very interesting that the idea that we at Perka Bandar has, to propagate that we need to have some kind of design control so that we can have better cities in terms of quality of design will be achieved post pandemic, because this is the opportunity that we have at the moment for this idea to materialize. And we at Perka Bandar is an interest group that is trying to push for this for urban design to be given more consideration in the way we plan our cities, because I think it's about time, if we are going towards a developed country status in the future, we need to look more in terms of quality, in terms of design. And we have learned a lot from the experience of the developed countries like UK, US, Australia, Japan. These are the countries that I have done research, to look at the way they implement urban design, and they all have one thing in common. You see, they do not just rely on the planning policies stipulated in the statutory documents, but they have all sorts of implementation, urban design implementation tools that will help to guide and facilitate the way the design of cities are being done. And this post-pandemic is the time for us to embark in this opportunity. If we look at from the perspective that given by Lillian as a practicing architect and Dato, and I think all the three of us have shared the same shared the same viewpoint. We see that it's not lost cause yet. There is light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, the process of building cities is very dynamic. But we have now that we have the time now to reflect on because of the COVID-19. There's practically no development takes place. Mostly we are all stuck at home, and gives us a lot of time to think, of the quality of life that we're facing during this pandemic. And we wouldn't want this kind of life to continue in the future, and we want to see our cities to be built with a better quality in mind. And having this compendium, urban design compendium and urban design guideline to translate the principles of urban design compendium, we hope will actually be one of the solutions. Probably maybe not the solution to solve the problem, but at least it helps to guide and facilitate the process of city building. On that note, I would like to thank Architect Lillian Tay for your thoughts, about your frank thoughts, and also to Dato for sharing your experience. And we at Perka Bandar would actually welcome as many of those of you who have this passion that we have in seeing urban design to be considered, to join us at Perka Bandar, because I think together, like I said, the experience in UK where the public are very concerned about the way the city is being built, actually put a lot of pressure on the city fathers to actually build better cities in the future. On that note, I said thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Salam.
Thank you, Dr.